We're living in troubling times, and barely a day goes by without another rift opening up in our already fractured society. And now a group of American academics believe they've stumbled across a form of white supremacy which has gone on for years, but has never been seen for the form of oppression which it so clearly is. The term academic is often used to describe someone who is intelligent yet has no practical use, and it's worth remembering that just because someone is clever, it doesn't mean they've been blessed with common sense. So what is this thing that's said to be not only a form of white supremacy, but also a weapon of the patriarchy, used to oppress people of colour, women, and the LGBTQ+ community? Well, it's music theory. Have those fuckers got nothing better to do? The idea is that most Western music can be linked to classical music theory, and given that the vast majority of classical composers were white men, it then follows that all forms of music theory are by default racist. So that would mean that Louis Armstrong, Billie Holiday, Freddie Mercury and Prince were all card-carrying fascists. Now, there is racism in music. Listen to any song by the neo-Nazi punk band Screwdriver. That's extremely racist, although I don't usually equate punk rock with music theory. I've never watched a punk guitarist clumsily smashing his way through 3 power chords and thought, I expect he spent years studying in Vienna. And just because most classical composers were white men, that doesn't mean the music's racist. It's just a reflection of society at the time. But if we go along with the idea that because classical music is predominantly composed by and performed by white musicians, ergo it is a form of racism, then it follows that any type of music which is mainly performed by one racial group must also be a form of racism. So that includes rap, hip-hop, reggae, even Bhangra music. Should we think all of that is racist? Of course not. And I don't know a great deal about classical music, but if I had to name 2 classical musicians, off the top of my head I would say the cellist Tina Guo and the virtuoso violinist Vanessa Mae, neither of which are either male or white. And did you know that Vanessa Mae is also an Olympic level skier? That's taking overachieving to a whole new level. And a thing I love about music is the way that different styles and genres borrow from one another or evolve. Take the blues. Music originally created by African American slaves, and the blues continued, but it also became rock and roll, which then spawned hard rock. And hard rock is a close cousin of heavy metal, and the musical theories used in heavy metal are exactly the same as which are used in classical music. Heavy metal is essentially classical music with electric guitars. And if proof were needed on that, just watch Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. But one composer comes in for special scrutiny from the academics. Arguably the most famous composer of all time, Beethoven. His work is claimed to be elitist, apparently mostly enjoyed by people of the middle and upper classes who are predominantly either white or Asian. But even if that is the case, that still doesn't make it fucking racist. In fact, what interests me is that given the great minds of academia who've come up with this idea that music is oppressing minority groups, well, Beethoven was deaf, so why are they picking on the disabled guy? And the notion that music theory is oppressing the LGBT... The idea that classical music theory is homophobic, well, I guess that would have come as a bit of a shock to my favourite composer, the Russian Peter Tchaikovsky, because he lived in the 18th and 19th centuries and was openly gay. And finally, the academics claimed that classical music isn't accessible to the majority of people, and that may have been the case 10, 20, 50, 100 years ago, but now we live in a digital age. Alexa, play Swan Lake by Peter Tchaikovsky.
Here's Swan Lake, Moderato, from Swan Lake, by Andrei Rieu, the Johann Strauss Orchestra, and Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky, on Amazon Music.
So to me, it feels like the learned people that came up with this idea are just trying to create a problem where there isn't one, and they'd be better shutting the fuck up. Thanks for watching.